Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Weekly Shonen Jump. This is Fonzie,
And this is Hero.
and this is for the Weekly Shonen Jump of June 10th, 2013. Boy, I'm sorry about this, but we have been away for a while. Yeah.
Mostly due to the awesomeness of this Man of Steel.
And, Father's Day too. So a
Yeah.
lot of manly things going on. Anyways, we're back with the the June 10th issue. Sorry, we have to backtrack a little bit. But the first one, we're starting off strong, and I'm glad we're starting off back because it's back, ladies and gentlemen. One Piece is back again.
And in the two-spread introduction of the chapter is like, I guess it's a mockery of like great martial arts films.
Yeah, all kung fu movies of sorts, and yes, of course, Sanji is wearing a yellow and black leotard.
I think Chopper is supposed to be like Po from Kung Fu Panda.
And
Sanji is a Kill Bill.
Whatever. Anyways, getting back off from this, the last battle had commenced, and of course the battle went to Bartholomew. However, Luffy seems to be more concerned about Hyena's condition, which is odd since before they were cutthroat enemies. But, that's One Piece. An enemy could be an enemy one day, and then an enemy could be a friend another.
I think the saying goes, today's enemy can be tomorrow's friend.
Yeah. Anyways, we get back from that scene and head straight back to Robin, Usopp, Caesar, and Trafigura at the bridge. And we finally get to see what the adult fighting fish look like. Fuck! Holy crap, these things are huge! They're bending iron at their will.
They make the Megalodon sharks from Megalodon look like trout.
Well, anything that you compare to Megalodon is better.
Yeah.
Anyways, it seems that the fighting fish are way too strong for most normal people to take care of, and so Usopp and Robin have to use some of their best abilities in order to thwart them off. However, there are too many of them, and they start trying to overrun them by going from both sides. So instead, they actually decide to let Caesar go so that he can fight the battles for them. However, you would think that taking off the Sea Prism cups would be a bad idea. However, Trafigura once again has Caesar's heart within his hand. Boy, this guy steals the hearts of everybody, fanboys and fangirls. And of course, Caesar does as asked, so he doesn't get his heart crushed, and starts blowing away some of the adult fighting fish away with mere gas power and explosions. Yes, he is a gas-powered man before, but he also has inventions that allow his gas to be used in chemical explosions. Anyways, of course, Trafigura can't fight because he's trying to store up all of his power for when Doflamingo shows up. And they finally start to reach the end of the bridge, which has now collapsed. Another fighting fish comes up, but is then automatically netted and stabbed with spears. And weird enough, it seems that there are people from the other side of the bridge who have caught these things. And eventually they even reel in the big fish and then run away, making the group wonder who they were. And of course, to get to the other side, they use Caesar in the most convenient way possible. Using the fact that helium is also a gas, he inflates himself to become a transport for them. Abusing your prisoners has never been so good. Anyways, they finally reach the other side of the island, and wow, it's something you would probably see out of Toriko. It's a giant, literally a giant scale of the smallest plants as an island. Mushrooms, roses, and other types of plants are now
Pumpkins.
now the size of skyscrapers and small buildings. This is in fact the place known as Greenbit, and for some reason all the animals smile maniacally at them. Anyways, it seems that they're not the only ones here. A Navy ship has been rammed into the forest and seem to have gotten stuck in it. Boy, the Navy really isn't having a good time being lost in frozen wastelands and now ending up in giant forests. Anyways, it seems that this is a problem due to the fact that the Navy is in fact here means that the transaction between Doflamingo and Trafigura may be compromised. However, However, in order to make sure that the plan is successful, they go and try and find the Navy pirates, the Navy inside the forest. Eventually, Usopp and Robin find them, and it seems that all of the Navy officers are cornered by a certain group of people. However, the people that they're fighting against are not shown.
People, and they come out as people in guys in underwear.
Well, it seems whatever confrontation that they had has left all of the men stripped down to nothing but their skivvies. And it seems that Robin knows who it is, and it seems that they are the little people.
Wait. So the hands are...
They're like a way for her to capture things. She uses her hand power to create an area where she can capture one of them.
Could it be that this is her birthplace or something?
Well, no, because she's using the power.
Oh.
Yeah, this is her. For those of you who are just getting to this, Robin's powers is of the Hana fruit, which when she crosses her arms, like from her chest, she can automatically make extra limbs out of anywhere in a certain area. She's often used this to make clones of herself, or use it in form of, constantly punching people, like consecutive blows.
And especially, what happened to
Frankie. We'll forget about that.
Oh, the poor man.
Oh, God.
The poor guy.
Buy the DVD. Anyways, we have...
One Punch Man.
Yep, and boy, was this interesting enough to see Sonic again.
In his half civilian clothes, where he's just going crazy because he wants to kill Saitama, for whooping his ass. But
that would go over as well as you would think.
Yeah, Saitama just decides to ignore him. He's like, "Oh, you son of a bitch! You do not ignore me!" And he swings his sword at him, and he bites.
No matter how strong your rape face or your sword is, it doesn't matter when it comes to Saitama, the bald guy.
Yeah, he just bites his sword
clean off.
Yeah, like it was like rock candy or something.
And even threatens to punch him if he doesn't go away.
Or I'll punch you.
Seriously, that's a threat. However, it seems that some people are getting weirded out about the two.
And suddenly another hero comes in named Tank Top Tiger.
I'm not going to expect this to be like a DC Hero League or something. I'm just going to expect, people out of the woodwork.
Yeah, and he's going to beat some bad guys, and it turns out it's Saitama.
Yep, people are having a problem with Saitama.
Because, well, like in the previous chapters, everybody thought he was part of that group of bald guys who were, who want to blow up corporate buildings.
Yeah, kind of weird that they would make that assumption. However, of course, Saitama tells him that he's also another hero. But of course, Tank Top Tiger, I'm just gonna call him Tiger because that name is just so stupid as eyebrows. And it seems that Tiger still doesn't want him to be in his city, sort of like how turf war works. Like,
right.
I control this area, you can go ahead and get lost. But of course, since this is Saitama's last day to actually perform a service as a hero, he can't exactly give that up. However, since the people have started crowding around him, it's starting to cause a scene, which starts to get on Tiger's ego.
Yeah.
He's literally got to pick a fight with another hero just to look good.
And suddenly, shurikens! And blows him up.
Yep, exploding shurikens. We need you to make sure that you knew what just happened to him.
And apparently it was Sonic who threw it at him.
Just by having super speed alone, I thought he was a pretty cool character, but now having exploding shurikens, that's something something that Batman would need.
Yeah. And so he goes crazy again, and he's like, Fight me! Come on, I want you to hit me! Come on, I want you to hit me!
This guy isn't much of a master ninja as he is a master of the rape face.
Yeah. And it throws more exploding shurikens, which
are very detailed.
Very well designed. And it actually shows how it actually works.
But instead of those shurikens hitting Saitama, it hits everything around Saitama on purpose.
I do not know. Well, because at first sight, I thought it was Saitama who threw him away.
Yeah, but of course it was Sonic just, being an asshole
Yeah,
and destroying public property.
People are getting hurt, and Saitama does like the Man of Steel begging, "Stop it!" Hey Saitama, you can always break his neck.
How many Man of Steel references are you going to make? Anyways, before a car is nearly flipped onto a child, Saitama does the hero thing, regardless of being the Man of Steel, and shoves a tree onto the car, keeping it away from the small child.
Because that happened. And Saitama's still being crazy.
However, he wants to still find a bad guy, and as he finally realizes that Sonic is a bad guy, he asks if he's a bad guy.
Wait a sec. Here's a bad guy. It just
karate chops him into the ground face first.
What?
With the last scene being of Sonic being taken away to the hospital with his face implant in the ground.
I gotta admit, that is really funny.
This whole chapter is summed up by that one page.
Yeah.
Anyways, we gotta get back to Naruto.
And so they're still fighting all of the little ten-tail henchmen thingies.
And Team 7 has never looked better. But of course, Team 7 isn't the only team of ninjas. Now it's
Team 8, who goes in, and I think Team 10 gets involved as well.
Showing off a bunch of jutsus, like Cerberus Jutsu, giant devouring beetle jutsu, and to be honest, Hinata using the 64 palms and successfully using it, but then goes in for a second round of the 64 palms with the Lion's Barrage.
Nice.
Seriously, she's using that technique that she tried to use on Pain.
And so Team 10 decides to jump in and use Formation E! Which is actually very cool. Shikamaru uses his Shadow Possession.
Well, Choji uses his Giant Expansion Jutsu.
And Ino uses her...
Mind Transfer Jutsu.
Yeah, Mind Transfer Jutsu. And get this. They sort of like turn Choji into a giant yo-yo using the Shadow Possession, which is really awesome if I admit.
That's just complete overkill. And you would think that everybody would have the same effect, including Sai. However, Sai is then shot outside trying to get a blow into the Biju's main form. Yeah, however, that doesn't exactly work out.
Yeah, so he's useless now.
That's not cool, because he used to be the cool character who had, the painting jutsus, who could make animals...
That could have been my power!
Yeah, that's if your art was any good. Ooh.
Shut up!
Anyway, Sai asks if Naruto still doesn't have the ability to share his chakra with other people, who reminds him that Sai is the strategic master here, and needs somebody who's not only able to get past them, but to get through all of the armies and create a diversion.
But the Ninetale still needs to recharge, so Team 7 comes up with an even better idea.
Yep,
Summoning Jutsu!
Yeah, Sasuke's gonna slither through the forces with his giant manda.
That's the next chapter.
Well, no. He says, I'm gonna go slip past them.
Yeah, so Sasuke summons, a snake, Naruto summons a frog, and Sakura...
jump over them?
And Sakura summons a slug to heal everybody. And put them together!
And that's awesome.
I gotta admit, that is the most awesome thing I've ever seen, where...
Two-page spreads.
Two-page spread of them summoning their creature as a complete homage to the original...
Sannin.
The original Sannin. I'm like, this is it. This is just it.
Anyways, we have World Trigger to get to. And my God, you know what, folks? I'm just going to say this, and to the artists, really, dude, give your characters different expressions. Seriously, this is starting to get boring.
Everything has the exact same face.
It's just simply normal face. There's, nothing different. Anyways,
Trigger. Trigger, activate.
Anyways,
Whoa.
besides the blandness of their faces, as the story goes, is that Jin has been ordered, since he is the Black Trigger of Border, to go and take care of Yuma. And of course, we then head back to Yuma, who's being given a tour by Osamu's little sister, who says that this place, and I guess it's a traditional Japanese temple, that nobody comes around here. And of course, to Yuma's blandness, just simply accepts that it's a nice place. Of course, Osamu's sister wants to know a little bit more about him and how he's actually a neighbor.
And he's eating burgers. So American.
Anyways, we actually get an interesting point to here, as as Yuma had said before, is that the people that are actually devoured by neighbors are not actually dead. Instead, they are actually sent to the other side to where their dimension is and used as like trion generators for weapons and abilities. And it seems that Yuma isn't like any of the other neighbors that have shown up so far, like the giant creatures that act like spiders or giant fish. In fact, there seems to be a system around there where even like the smallest of human resources, like how many soldiers do they have, is their commander good or not, are actually in effect in their world. So it's kind of interesting to see that it's not just full of a bunch of monsters and Yuma's just special. Anyways, of course, Yuma also basks in the idea that Osamu is still protecting him. And of course, he always goes on to the fact that he shouldn't get involved, and he often asks why now she's involved. It's because that she wanted to really know what happened to her friend from elementary school and her real older brother, who were both attacked by neighbors because of her huge Trion amount. And of course, in their own way, kind of make fun of the fact that Osamu is still involved with both of them, even though that it's a dangerous area between both of them, being Yuma a Black Trigger and her being a huge Trion generator. And of course, she says that she's a little bit afraid for Yuma, but then after the battle, he said that there's not many border agents who could actually take him on, except for one, and that would be Jin, the Black Trigger. And of course, then we head back to the meeting room after Masamune gives Jin the order, and Jin refuses.
Why?
Well, because it's due to his complex character. In fact, that he actually works for a different manager instead. He actually works for Tamakoma, and it's just like, hey, you have to go through my boss to order me around, dude. It's kind of like that.
Talk to my boss and his boss and his boss and his boss.
Anyway, since, of course, Tamakoma is actually in the room, he actually gives him the order as well. However, with a little bit of interest, saying that he can choose the situation however he wants. So in short, he can actually decide to either fight Yuma or just simply talk to him. It's up to him. And of course, with a nice, interesting smile, finally an expression besides bland, and just going into cool mode with his sunglasses from Deus Ex Machina the game, sets on his way with Osamu to go find Yuma. And of course, I'm just gonna call them assholes because this is just what they are. They're just always condescending and always trying to poke against Osamu. Anyways, they say that Osamu shouldn't be trusted because he's not a part, or Jin, because Jin isn't a part of the original branch that they're in. And of course, the the financial officer in charge of Border asks whether or not they could actually negotiate with Yuma, because in fact he is human and can actually, be negotiated with. Anyways, they ask for a name having to deal with who Yuma is. He gives Yuma's name, saying that he is Yuma Kuga, and it seems that the Kuga name seems to express a lot of shock and awe, and I'm not going to say it, but really gets people's eyebrows raised. Don't say it.
What?
Never mind. The faces are all still bland. Even though that shocking evidence has been made, everybody doesn't flinch. I mean, it's supposed to show shock and awe. Yeah, it's supposed. There's exclamation marks in here. Make them afraid. Use depression marks. Use shock and awe. Make their mouths bigger. Something. God.
Yeah, I know this art is so bland.
Anyways, we then conclude with the chapter that there's a mystery behind Kuga's last name. And of course,
yeah, we're skipping cross manage because we don't care. And let's see what's next. Oh yeah, Bleach.
All right, and this is where chapter Oetsu comes back into play.
What comes in this chapter?
Anyways, it seems that Oetsu has summoned 5 individuals from out of nowhere.
No, 5 ladies with attitude.
Yep, and the first thing they do is beat the crap out of Oetsu for some reason or another. They just
so and one girl's very busty because you just have to have one.
Well, anyways, it seems that they're all his Sochi, so it doesn't really matter. Anyways, he calls over Ichigo's Sochi, and it just kind of disappears and gets forged into a white blade. Whereas the girl that we met before has her own ability by breathing fire onto it, and another girl uses her own tears as a form of welding material. It's like...
Okay.
Anyways, it seems that all these Sochi are basically used for handling and making swords. And, and I'm not going to go into that one, but one girl can, in fact, make a hammer come out of her. I'm just not going to tell you how.
Out of her tooth?
When I say I'm not going to tell, I usually say I'm not going to tell, but I guess that doesn't work for you. Anyways, it seems that Oetsu is in serious mode now, and is ready to start the process of making Ichigo Zanpakuto. And of course, Ichigo questions why he took off his sunglasses, and that's because he wants to see the color of the flame, see what it's really like, and know the truth about what's really in Ichigo's soul, which is something that only Oetsu can do. And of course, he makes preference to the person who's pretending to be Zangetsu inside you, which is surprising because he says that the hollow is the real Zangetsu. So then who's been the old man since Ichigo has started this journey? And it would surprise you that it's essentially a man who looks suspiciously like Juha Brea.
Dum dum dum.
And in fact, is Juha Brea from 1,000 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, just wow.
Just been hiding in there. Anyways, we have to
now we get even more madness.
Yes, and by the way, folks, I will make this clear. We don't have to hear about that imagination bullshit anymore about Toriko.
Good.
Because it hasn't appeared in the last 3 chapters, and it will never appear again, and if it so does, I'm going to kill someone. Anyways, back to the battle with Starjun. After Starjun got a nice little hit to the chest and was sent through a mountain, it seems that now they're ready to start getting onto the same battlefield since both of them now know that same technique and will use it. Anyways, before the battle starts, we see the Gourmet Center is absolutely in ruins, as we see Mansom is on the ground after being stabbed through the chest. And of course goes into a little flashback of, I'm not sure, but I guess the plot does demand that there be a flashback of how he was actually beaten by Ryu before. Anyways, he wakes up to the man who stabbed him in the chest in the first place. And you know what? It seems like brave face is the norm around here. And it seems that Manson's ready to take on the rogue chef who was once a part of the Bishyokukai and is now a part of the Bishyokuya. And of course we see that other people are taking on theirs, and of course Zebra, just absolutely causing mass murder to the Nitro. These things used to be intimidating before, but now he just has one of them crushing between his biceps. Anyways, we go back to the hole where Coco and Grimpatch were fighting in. However, it seems that we have no information on the fight, and it seems that Grimpatch has come out of the hole as creepy as ever. That's not good to know. What happened to Coco? Anyways, we transition to a castle in another area that's keeping keeping video recordings of the entire goings on at the arena. And we're not exactly sure who this is, but they seem to be keeping tabs on all the battles that have been going on. Anyways, we get back to the epic battle between Toriko and Star June, and they're finally done playing around with the imagination bullshit. Where Toriko has now combined another one of his attack with the fork, the spike punch fork, sending out consecutive blasts of, I'm gonna say it, trident-like punches. And of course, the battle continues as Star June uses his own fire abilities to knock Toriko's abilities back, and of course, until Toriko uses a giant flurry of forks and knives against him, all Star June has to do is use a flick of his sword to make all of them vanish. Like a badass. He doesn't even look like he tried. He looks like he's just holding the sword with as much little effort as possible. That's gotta be for the cool anti-hero for you. Anyway, the battle is about to get heated up, and no pun there, being that he uses fire. Now that he's pulled out his own kitchen knife. Yeah, that's a kitchen knife.
Okay. And
aside from all the action and excitement, we go back to Nisekaway.
Whereas
Ordena's mom is having trouble because one of the crew members that they have at their sweet shop can't actually make it.
Yeah, so they're short of employees, and then she gets the idea of asking Kasaki to ask their handsome helper to come by and help. And of course Haru's like, handsome helper? Who's that? And it's Ichijo, and I gotta say, her face is hilarious. It's just hilarious.
You know, nothing feminine there. Nothing.
I can just look at it all day.
You're a weirdo.
I can look at it all day because it's so funny.
Anyways, it seems that Ichijo is there to help out with all the sweet making, seeing as the other person cannot make it.
And she doesn't like it.
Oh, what hijinks this will get into.
And so they get all arguing. And mom said, and their mom says, "Well, I see you two have already have sparks between you. Oh, with Jakasaki, I think you have a rival."
Well,
no, Mom, just no.
Mom doesn't have to be blunt. Anyways, she ends up having to go on to an errand.
and Kosaki asks Ichijo for a little spoon, and he does so, and sister just grabs it out of him.
It's just so that Ichijo won't get any closer to Kosaki at all.
Yeah, it's like very awkward stuff.
Yeah, anyways, Kosaki ends up actually leaving just so that Haru and Ichijo could get better acquainted, just so that everything has peace, because after all, we all know that Haru has had some difficulties with Ichijo already.
Yeah, and so, yeah, they just talk about how great Kasaki is.
Yeah, pretty much nerding out about how great Kasaki is. And even though that they're both agreeing with them readily, Haru, kind of face plants him into the wall.
Because Ichijo said that that Kosaki can be a little clumsy and clueless sometimes, and that deserves a punch in the face.
Yeah.
Because that's just how Japan works. Like, if you say something bad, you get a little fucking punch to the face.
Anyways, they finally start getting back to work after a little bit of arguing and reminiscing about who in fact is their mysterious hero. After Ichijo tries to convince her that it was actually him who saved her, she of course doesn't believe a word.
Well, no, I think it's I don't think he realizes that he was. No, I'm getting confused now. Because I don't think he was trying to convince her that it was him. right? Because because I think that's in the next chapter where he actually tries.
Well, this was just brought up in the fact of it. That's why she got so mad at him again, because she thought, because he said, well, I say before, and she just did simply believe it.
Yeah. So and she gives like a very weird picture of who she thinks her her knight in shiny armor is.
Shoujo girls, whatever.
Uh,
At least it's not a thinly gangly man.
the
Anyways, they finally get back to work, and it seems that Haru is noticing how Ichijo works in terms of sweets. And I guess that's a thing for him. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, like he's supposed to be like a great cook, um, and I guess they get geeky again on sweets.
And of course, Mom shows up again just to be more embarrassing to Haru.
Be more blunt, and and, and so she tries to carry big boxes of stuff, but the thing is, they're almost about to fall off, and he grabs her from behind.
Yeah, well, whatever. It's just supposed to be for that moment that it's supposed to look embarrassing.
And she doesn't like it. And she doesn't like the fact that she's being touched. But the real reason is that if he lets go, all the stuff will fall and be destroyed.
Yeah, anyway, so they're pretty much just standing there, and then Kosaki comes back into the room, and of course Haru reacts the way you would think, and just goes completely nuts and throws them all over the floor.
Yeah, and Mom is not real happy.
Yep, and that's pretty much the end of that chapter.
Now
Mine now.
Yeah, so now we're Romy Kenshin, the end of it.
Yes, this is the end of the feudal rebirth. It's essentially another comic appreciating the Rurouni Kenshin style. Anyways, this is actually the climactic battle between him and Janae. And unfortunately, unlike the original anime, this one goes in a much more worse direction, with Kaoru getting stabbed through the chest instead. And Janae just loving it, because after all, he didn't like what Batosai said about the sword, about being a manslayer and repenting by helping people with his own reverse blade sword. And of course, you would think that he would just continue monologuing, but of course, Kenshin Himura, the Batosai, is not going to stand for that and shoves his reverse blade sword into Janae's chin. And with that, doesn't notice that he's been struck twice. As Kenshin's scar lights up with the same color as blood, he knows that Batosai the Manslayer has finally been unleashed. And like all the other transformation sequences, like Holification, Nine Tails form, those.
Yeah.
This is just simply him reverting back to a guy who was willing to kill. Anyway, when Janae is done kidding too, and is finally ready to accept that this is the Manslayer's destiny, to die by the sword in one final strike. And aside from this, I still think that this is a much weirder style than what the original Janae used. The original Janae used one sword to fight against Kenshin, and used things like the Shino Ippo to increase his strength or to stop people in paralysis. Instead, this one is where he has wounds in his hand and uses only the blades, and by means no hilt or sheath, and just puts them into the wounds of his hand to keep them in place and creating a new sword style. Well, essentially, even with all of that, with two attacks coming from two different directions, Kenshin uses the ultimate style, the Hiten Mitsurugi style, the Konotsu Gasashi no Ryu no Hirameki, which is odd because in the anime and the original manga, the real ultimate attack is the Amakakeru Ryu no Hirameki. Anyways, enough of my nerding out. Janae is defeated by being defeated by a 9-point attack to 9 points of his body, and then eventually is struck once in the chest with an actual stabbing blow. And of course, Batosai is ready to use the to do him in with the final blow, but Kaoru ends up stopping him, even though that she was supposedly stabbed. And of course, this is actually explained. It seems that before, Janae was actually hit with another wound into his hand by Kenshin before the battle had commenced, making the wound wider in his hand so that his sword wasn't able to stab through Kaoru completely. And of course, since now that Kaoru is okay, Kenshin's just going to ignore the fact that he nearly tried to kill Janae. And once again reverts back to his old peaceful self and says that he will not kill him. However, Janae will not accept that, and instead decides to commit the ultimate of manslayer and or samurai honor, seppuku.
In other words, suicide.
Yep, because he solely believes that once you are a manslayer to the day you die. You don't get a choice. You don't have redemption. You've killed too many people for your soul to be saved. And like that, Janae dies on the floor. That's actually the same way he went beforehand, which is pretty nice to see. Anyways, we transition away from all the battles where Sanosuke, Yahiko, and Kaoru are all enjoying the time after all the battles.
Amidst the Bambi transition.
I haven't seen Bambi in a while, so yeah. Anyways, they're being brought food from the Akabeko to celebrate the victories of what had already went on. However, Kenshin is not with them and is actually seeing off Saito, who is heading back to the government to tell them about what Kanryu has done and his illegal weapon smuggling with Hong Kong. Anyways, Kenshin actually transitions back to when he noticed that Janae had killed himself, and is wondering whether or not he can actually return to being a wanderer and not a manslayer, whether he can continue it or not. And Saito constantly makes him realize that he is a manslayer from the revolution, just like how he was in the Shinsengumi. So as it goes, Kenshin, in his own way, and as you would expect, says that he's done wandering and he would be fine with just being here. He doesn't care about the government anymore. All he wants to do is protect the people that are closest to him, and he will not take a life in order to do so. And of course, Saito would say the same thing as you would most likely predict, is that he's a fool. Anyways, the scene ends with Kenshin heading back to the others, and unfortunately the last part of the restoration, which is a pretty good reinterpretation of the Kenshin series, with a couple characters that were from the original series like Kanryu and others, but I just wish it went on a little bit longer. Anyways, aside from my nerding out on Ronin Kenshin,
now time for Dragon Ball Z!
And
the Saiyans are coming!
Now, believe it or not, this is after the training that went on with Bubbles. Now, here's the thing though. In the original manga, it seems that Gregory is not there. Gregory was essentially, in the anime, the second test for Goku to complete. Goku was supposed to hit a cricket named Gregory who could travel at, I'm not kidding, literally light speed, and he had to hit him with a mallet that weighed 5 tons.
Mm-hmm.
However, it seems that they just simply go straight to the Spirit Bomb training, which is simply gathering life energy from the forces around him and shooting it into a blast far surpassing the Kamehameha wave. And they tested this on a brick. That's it.
Yep.
And of course, it seems that there's a problem. King Kai has also noticed that the Saiyans are actually coming in earlier than expected. Yeah, no filler on the bug planet this time.
Yeah.
We're not visiting the bug planet, Nappa.
I remember when we first got it! Memories.
Anyways, Goku contacts Master Roshi by, King Kai phone.
Yeah, and Master Roshi at this time is taking a dump.
Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah, anyways. He wants him to summon back the dragon so that he can be returned back to life so that he can get into the battle since he has already completed his training. And
bring out the Dragon Balls!
Yep. You couldn't have said that any better, Master Roshi, with your pants down. Anyways, Goku is now on his way and is finally not dead anymore after being summoned back by the dragon. However, of course, Piccolo notices that since the dragon has been summoned, that Son Goku has been returned and that the Saiyans are slowly on their way.
Yep. And so he just flies back, and then the Saiyans arrive.
Yep. This is gonna be bad, folks. Real bad.
yeah, but we all know where this is gonna go.
Yeah. Anyways, for that, that was for the last weekly Shonen Jump that was on the 10th. Sorry again for that one. It shouldn't happen like that again. Anyways, it's time to get back onto Fairy Tail.
Yay! Hooray, Fairy Tail!
You're not allowed to be happy.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not, because you didn't appreciate the fact that I actually won the bet.
No.
It had to do with the old tier. I said it. Go back to it.
No.
Go back to the pre-recordings. You're not making this any better. Anyway.
Nice. The chapter cover.
Yeah, anyways, for the chapter itself,
everyone is dying.
Yep, everybody from Bacchus to Dory and to Eva.
Wait. Didn't we already do this?
Oh, looks like you're right.
Yeah, like everyone got brought back to life.
Whoops, my fault, ladies and gentlemen.
Ha! Well, I'm just gonna die now, so... No, I think it's the one before it.
That was the one before it.
No, you're like in the very...
Here it is, okay. See. I clicked on it, same thing.
Huh.
Anyways, yeah, we'll have only one to go through this time around. However, it seems that due to some technical difficulties and obviously us being away from the reviews for some time, we have only one Fairy Tail chapter to review so far. And that's most likely due to a hiatus or some other means. Anyways, getting back to it, after Ultir had used her magic in order to resurrect everybody else, everybody got this distinct advantage of knowing what's going to happen 1 minute prior to what happened to them before. In this case, many people now are not dead, but now know what they need to do in order to actually live. And of course, we return back to many of the people, including Wendy and Luxus, who are fighting off against, god damn it, Zilcones. Still a dragon I do not respect, other than the mind that all he does is remove your clothes. Anyways, of course, they're having difficulties with the other smaller dragons due to Mother Greya.
However, but Lucy has a plan.
Yep, after finding it seems that it's the future Lucy's diary, shows that the only way that Rogue was actually able to get to here was actually by using the Eclipse Gate itself, which meant that if they could destroy the Eclipse Gate in their present time, then the Rogue of the past wouldn't be able to use it in order to get to the past. I know I just said that in a double entendre, but that's the fact of it. The past Rogue needs to get to the past, blah blah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and if he's...
Unless you're a Time Lord, you'll get this. Anyways, of course they're ready to take down the Eclipse Gate.
But it doesn't go down so easily.
Yeah, this thing is made out of kick-ass, apparently, because it seems that no matter how many of their stealth spirits they use...
It's made of Maginium.
I'm just gonna go with fairies on that one, too.
Yeah,
it's made out of fairies.
Made out of fairies.
Well, Tinkerbell's gonna be pissed. Anyways, we get back to the exciting fight with Sting, Rogue, and Natsu, who are fighting on top of 2 dragons, mind you. 2 dragons, ladies and gentlemen. This is just like how it was done in Wraith Master.
I think your argument is invalid.
Anyways, Rogue is now tired of playing with Natsu and uses more of his more sinister techniques using the shadows to try and kill Natsu from below. That of course would work as you would think, and only seems to knock Natsu off Mother Greya and onto the last part of her tail. This is an exciting battle, of course. However, of course, Natsu asks the question to Rogue as in, did Fro die in your world? And to reiterate, Fro is in fact the cat, or the Exceed, if you want to use that was befriending Rogue beforehand. Anyways, this Rogue seems to be a lot more of an asshole, saying that Fro would die eventually. It wouldn't have mattered if he died in the dragon attack or not. So he just pulls out the asshole move. And of course, even after knowing that Fro is alive in this reality making Sting remember that he is his friend, he still will try to kill and take over all the dragons, even if that means taking Fro's life.
So yeah,
what a dick.
So yeah, dickhole.
Well, whatever it is, Rogue Sting tries to use a more powerful technique against Natsu, but Natsu once again constantly dodges it. And I'm going to say it uses the power of friendship, and I'll say it, the power of his ultimate dialogue to evade all the shots, and eventually use his Dragon Flame sword edge on Rogue by bashing his head straight into Rogue like a rocket straight into him, and boy is it satisfying to see that.
Yeah, he pretty much does like the whole Goku headbutt.
2-page spreads this time around.
Yeah.
Awesome, aren't they? And of course, Stingro gets flung along with Mother Greya, and we then transition back to the Eclipse Gate after even every attempt made to try to break it or to harm it doesn't seem to do jack. Like I said, either made of kick-ass or fairies.
But then suddenly...
Well, I guess dragons are the most powerful thing in this world, since the collision of Mother Greya just blew it apart.
Yeah.
Yep, and of course it's all due to Natsu's doing, which ends the chapter with him standing over the unconscious Sting Rogue and everybody praising that the Eclipse Gate has been stopped.
And Natsu's like, I am so smart! I am so smart!
He did it on accident. He's probably going to say, what happened to the Eclipse Cannon? Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that was it for the June 10th issue of Shonen Jump and the Fairy Tail chapter. We hope you enjoyed it, and this has been Fonzie.
And this is Hero.
And we're signing off.